What is up, everybody? Welcome here to Half-Ass Pod. It's your boy Corn. Ladies and gentlemen, over here to my left, we have Smith. Smith, say what's up to the people.
What's up, people?
And down here on the bottom, we have the author, the creator, the editor, the end-all, be-all of not only Walter Paisley Cafe, but Spadal. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Platt. Mark, say what's up to the people.
It's so good being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company like the Walter Paisley Cafe. So no, I'm not high. That's just being me. But good to be here. I'm really looking forward to talk about this movie.
And ever since I've watched this movie earlier, I've been very eager to talk about this. Because this is very different than what we've been used to, just like what I said about the second movie. Very different than what we've been accustomed to in terms of Freddy Krueger. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to be reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 Dream Master. Now, this movie is I guess you guys you kind of agree on this, that it's a direct sequel, literally direct sequel to the third one, because it kind of takes place right after the third one. Except instead of what were the three guys? It was Kincaid, obviously, and Kristen, and what was the other guy's name? Joe or Joey?
Yeah,
Joey. So you got these three guys, and instead of them being in a mental institution, they somehow landed at the very same high school, which to me was very odd, but whatever. Disbelief, right? Got to suspend your, suspension of belief, right?
Yeah.
So, you start off with this movie, with these three. Kincaid, somehow, some way, his dog ends up pissing on the grave of Freddy Krueger and reviving Freddy Krueger. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to stop right there and just say, yes, that really happened. That is not an exaggeration. So this kind of backs up my statement already about how wacky this movie really is. Does anybody want to say anything about that first part?
The dog pissed fire, not just regular piss.
Yes.
So.
The dog pissed fire.
The one thing I found notable was that the dog was named Jason. I think that was a little shout out. Who knows? That may have been the first inkling of what we saw of Freddy versus Jason, because that whole thing got mucked up for years. I mean, the big thing that started it was Freddy's gloved hand taking down Jason's mask, and Jason goes to hell. But it could have been hints. I don't know. But I mean, it was the 80s. It was the golden age of slasher films, and So and this is what, 88 now.
Yeah, this is 1988.
Yeah. So they were getting old. This was kind of the end, So at least of that wave, and So I think Jason was a shout out. I just thought it was kind of funny.
And I caught that as well, Mark, because I was laying in bed when I was watching this, and I literally sat up and I was like, wait a minute, did he say Jason? And I'm like, what is this, 1988? I'm like, no way they would have done that. So I kind of thought of it a little bit, but I kind of let it blow past me a little bit, because I was like, no, they wouldn't have done that. And then, so now knowing that they literally kind of did that on purpose, is like a little nod to the audience. I thought I was actually pretty clever, pretty cool. But this was only the start, ladies and gentlemen, because as they off Kincaid, as we kind of, Mark, you and I, we joked about, in our last review of this movie, on the third one, about how, you have this trope, right, of the black guy dies first, but we were like, oh, he actually didn't die first in this one. And then we get to the fourth one, and it's like, wait a minute.
It's almost like there was some executives like, what? Oh my God! Wait a minute! They let the bad guy. Okay, we gotta make up for that. All right, we'll give you the $6 million for this movie, but in fact, don't worry, we'll give you 2 black people for him to kill.
As long as one of them dies in the first 10 minutes, you'll get the money.
Yeah. But you know what? I didn't mind Kincaid getting killed off. It's just the way he died. And again, that's going to be a common thing with this movie. It's not the fact that you're killing this character off, because again, I don't care what movie or show. I can be so attached to the character. I will always appreciate when you can kill off appreciable characters and important characters.
Mm.
It's just the way you do it, and how are you going to be able to tell that story of that character and actually give them, I wouldn't even necessarily say a good send off, but a send off that makes sense. This one did not. And again, we're gonna get into the whole, like, the way the people died in this movie, because it's very, very weird. And like Smith, we were talking, prior to this, you mentioned how maybe it was the director, and maybe the way that this director wanted to go about things, and the way that just the wacky ways people died in this movie, and how he tried to bring in the martial arts culture a little bit. It was very weird, man. It was very, very weird. And I actually want to start off with you guys about certain deaths. And I really want to get you guys' opinion. Smith, I'll start with you. In terms of, we had a woman die from becoming a roach. This movie was not your typical, Nightmare on Elm Street movie at all. Smith, what are your thoughts in terms of, the deaths of this movie? Was it interesting to you? Did it make the movie better or more entertaining? What?
It was like half and half, because some of the deaths, I know this movie's old, but the special effects are pretty fucking good. So like the cockroach lady, when she died, that was awesome. And then the dude seeing the fucking shirtless chick in his waterbed and then fucking getting killed by Freddy. Those are like the top two deaths in the whole film right there.
That
the
was
other
an
ones,
Oscar clip.
Yeah. Especially Kincaid's, when he died, that was just fucking lame. Like, what is he in the world of Cars? Like, oh, it's super fucking scary. Like, I don't know.
Mark, what about you?
Oh man. Well, actually, the way I look at it, it's like, coming from, the old man perspective, when Nightmare on Elm Street first came out, the first one, really, I mean, it pales in comparison to now, but, at that point, it seemed so creative and so imaginative, compared to the stock slasher films, the generic ones that were coming. I mean, yeah, there were just so many. You could actually say, oh yeah, this particular film is just a generic slasher film. So yeah, and I think because with each sequel, somebody, maybe with the exception of number 2, but they were trying to top the last one. And yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I was really impressed. I was really impressed with the special. I mean, they had almost $2 million more than Dream Warriors did for budget. And I honestly think some of that went to the special effects. I think Freddy's makeup actually looked a little better, or the lighting on him was better. But yeah, I really liked the cockroach, because for me, remember how I talked about Dream Warriors, where I got really squeamish when the kid with, like, his veins were pulled out of his arms,
Yeah,
and he was walking around. Well, yeah, when Freddy crushed Debbie's arms, and then they just, like, popped open, I was like, okay, that's my vein guy moment for this movie. Yeah, I mean, and it just got more gruesome from there. And I think gruesome is a key word for this movie, because the deaths in here are gruesome.
yeah, and not only gruesome, like, kind of like grotesque a little bit. I mean, go back to that scene where Freddy is sitting there eating that pizza, where he brings the pizza to her, and it's like the souls and I was like, for some reason, because I'm not a very squeamish person, but for some reason, when he's sitting there and he takes this razor, he takes the little sausage or meatball, whatever that is, and it's got like the soul in it, and he's like, soul food. I love soul food, and I don't know, it just made me kind of gag a little bit, man. I'm just like, ugh, like, what the?
Yeah,
disgusting. But this movie, in terms of, like you said, they gave this movie $2 million more in terms of the budget than they did Dream Warriors. So now we started to see the visual effects, like you guys were, like both of you guys stated, in terms of, you're starting to see better lighting. When you see some of these doors open, you're seeing smoke and the lighting on the floor. Like, it's some really, really cool shit visually that we got to see. However, this movie to me had very, very, very inconsistent plot points throughout this movie. And one of them being, well, I wouldn't even say that it had anything to do with plot. But what really took me out at the very beginning of this movie was the fact that it was this girl who showed up on screen. And again, I wasn't alive during this time. So I didn't, obviously I don't know if people knew that, hey, Kristen's going to be a different actress in this next one. So, guys, maybe the audience was aware going into this movie that Kristen is going to be, played by someone different. I don't know. Maybe Mark, you could probably answer that. But in terms of me sitting down and I'm going to watch this movie, and I remember because we talked about it last week about, hey, there's a different actor playing Kristen. But it already took me out because I didn't know who this character was. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a brand new character. Okay, they're going to introduce her. And then they say Kristen, and I'm like, so I had to go back and look up Patricia Arquette again. And I'm like, this looks nothing like. I mean, they didn't even. It looked like they didn't even fucking try, bro. Because she had the most innocent looking face. Like she had like this complete like baby face. And again, not shaming her or anything like that, but just saying like she just did not match the character. And then you started to see later on throughout this movie that for some reason her personality kept changing and changing drastically. And then you kind of had to put the pieces together that that she's actually. The souls are actually like trapped in her body or something. Like I'm still trying to figure that part out. Maybe Mark, you could probably answer that as well. But I was very confused once we got like halfway through the movie and you started to see not necessarily Kristen because she died like halfway through the damn movie. But what was the other chick's name? Alice was it or something like that? Yeah. And you start to see Alice. Her personality started to change and get really weird and shit like that. Kristen ended up dying. After you got Kincaid's death, then you had Joey's death, which I thought, like you said, when you said Joey's death, that would probably be my favorite death of this movie. Not gonna lie, that whole waterbed scene, that was done really really well because when the mom walks in the room, you're like, wait a minute, where's his body at? And I should have put two and two together. I should have put two and two together that they're gonna put his body inside the fucking waterbed. Of course, I just finished watching Conjuring 3. Like I should have put two and two together, but. After seeing that, I'm like, holy shit, this was awesome, the way they did it. But then again, that was to me, that was like the only really, really good death that they had in this movie.
Yeah, do you, with that, because, when the mom pulled back the sheets and Joey was in the waterbed, the naked lady part was hilarious. But, but yeah, they kind of give me an indication and more so as the movie progressed, that was it just me or did Freddy seem to sort of cross over into the real world or outside of the dream world a little bit more in this movie than he did in others? I mean, yeah, I guess he kind of full on goes out in the pool scene in number 2, but I don't know, was that just me or?
No, it was just you. I noticed that as well. That he really did play with like the outside world a lot.
Yeah, and this was kind of the first indication, which I think kind of made it more menacing of, it was kind of like, it gave this thing like, oh, okay, well, we got Freddy coming back from the dead, that the destruction, if you will, that was supposed to be unreturnable. And then you've got this, him sort of being able to sort of come out of the dream world seemingly on his own, unless they're still playing on the fact that he has this connection with Kristen. I don't know.
That one, yeah, that part was weird too. Like, again, I left this movie with more questions than we got answers, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. In fact, I hate it when too many questions get answered. Because, like, for instance, it's like, number 3 had me wondering, like, what is Freddy really supposed to be? It's like, is he a demon? And why does he get... But it's like, ultimately it doesn't matter. But those questions crossed my mind. And in a way, I kind of like, even though I have those questions, I don't know if I want them answered. I don't know. Maybe I forgot. Maybe they explain them further in further movies, or they leave it a mystery. I mean, sometimes you got to just leave things a mystery.
Yeah, but I want to ask you guys this question too, though. Is because we know that there's more Freddy movies, right? But
Mhm.
at the times that they were coming out, was it a guarantee that there's going to be another sequel? Like, what was it that immediate guarantee back in the day, Mark?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that while I was watching this, and especially when it came to the end. I mean, every movie so far has made it. Well, I mean, they've given hints at the end or whatever. So that's yeah. I don't think that's completely out of the question. I mean, the '80s. Well, actually, it was the late '70s. I think it might have been Rocky 2 or The Godfather 2 that sort of brought in this like era of blockbuster films having sequels, where before it was kind of poison, or you would get sequels to movies that weren't necessarily outwardly sequels. They wouldn't be so and so 2 or whatever. They would just be a different name and maybe say so and so is back, like
Yeah.
blah blah blah, or like with the James Bond movies. Like we don't have a James, we don't have like I don't know, God, here Age Against Octopussy 2 or Quantum whatever, and they're just different names, So
Yeah.
so yeah, but so I think by the time Freddy was going, yeah, especially since they were making money, I think that sequels were kind of expected, and but they still wanted to leave us thinking like, oh, really? Is this the end of Freddy? Maybe. I think this, so, but they always give a little hint. This one I think was more subtle with the hint at the end. I don't know. What about you guys?
It was subtle, but again, the death. Smith, what did you think of that death scene? Like Freddy's death.
I mean, let's talk about the gearing up montage she did before that.
Yeah, that was,
That was
weird,
so
man.
that took me out of it, and then he died from real or some shit. Like I guess. What is the hint? What subtle hint are you talking about? And it may have been so subtle I didn't catch it.
Oh, when Rick, was it Rick? Oh no, the love interest of Alice
Mm-hmm.
was walking with her, and he throws a
And
coin
the wishing well.
in the wishing well, and the reflection is Freddy, and
Oh,
that's all they did. You missed that?
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I guess it was subtle because, it just flew by really quick. It wasn't like, what was it? Number 2, the bus, being,
Oh my God.
going off, and then
I'm glad you brought that up. I really wanted to talk about that ending compared to this one. It was definitely better than whatever the fuck happened on screen during the second film. Like,
now you said 4 was better than 2, or 2 was better than 4?
4 was better than 2, and I don't know about
Ooh.
3 being better than 4. It's kind of, I would say 3 was better than 4.
I think three to me. I think 3 is still the better one of the ones that we watched so far. Of the first 4, 3 to me is still the GOAT of the franchise for right now. And now that you mentioned the second one, what was that? Freddy's Revenge, right?
Yeah.
Going back to that gearing up scene, we talked about the very 80s vibe that you get from that scene as well. I mean, she's putting all the gadgets, the gloves, the elbow pad, like everything on, and it's just
The
like
nunchucks.
yeah, and it's like, is this really necessary? But then you go back to Freddy, you go back to number 2, right? And I'm on Elm Street 2, where he's doing the glasses. Like, remember, he's putting on the glasses, he's doing all this other stuff, and he's doing all this slow motion 80s stuff. I just think that because I was watching a couple of interviews of the people that were a part of the cast on this on this one, on number 4, and they were saying that it was supposed to play to the pop culture of the late 80s, of the MTV kind of audience, and to their surprise, they actually succeeded. Although the movie, I don't think this movie made a lot of money, but the reason why they were able to go on with the sequel after this, and a lot of people will say that Freddy 4, and I didn't find this out until earlier today, that Freddy 4 is actually the Freddy Krueger, the birth of the Freddy Krueger that everybody knows now.
Yeah,
Just
that makes
because of
sense.
how wacky and weird and crazy he is in this one. He went from being a horror icon, which he still, in a way, he still is, into more of a comedic horror icon, if that makes sense. And once I realized that, the light bulb in my head kind of, clicked a little bit because I'm like, okay, this is where we start getting a different Freddy than what we've seen in the first three. And maybe this is where Robert Englund starts making a real name for himself as Freddy. Because I mean, obviously everybody wanted him. I assume everybody wanted him to continue playing Freddy after the first movie. But in terms of number 4, man, I'm thinking to myself like, wow, they really took the script. And by the way, they wrote this movie. They were still writing this movie as they were filming. A little fun fact, which is why this movie is so shitty in terms of the storyline. I want to ask you guys, and Mark, I'll start with you on this one. In terms of killing off Kristen halfway through the movie, if even that, how did you feel about that? Because in the first 20 minutes, you're at least thinking to yourself, so Kristen is still the main character of this movie and of the story. And then after you kill her off, it's like, okay, so now we have to depend on Alice. So, Mark, I want to throw it over to you and kind of ask you and get a little feel, get inside your head of what you were really thinking in the first 20, 30 minutes of this movie with Kristen.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, her being played by a different actress. I hate to say it, but yeah, it really took me out of the movie in a lot of ways. Where I think, number 3 really did well to create those characters, to endear the audience to them. And, because it was like seeing Kincaid and Joey again was really cool, but seeing Kristen, it's sort of like it just didn't have that feel. So I don't think I cared as much only on that. It's like, oh, the movie nerd in me or the, snobby, cinephile in me is like, well, that really shouldn't matter after all, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but honestly, though, I mean, the only thing I can think of, and I don't know if this justifies it, but I think my theory is that Kristen's death was the trigger for Alice to get the powers. Like, I don't think she had like the philosophy of dreams. I mean, I thought that scene was kind of lame, where she was like, how do you know so much about dreams? I'm like, that wouldn't have been my response. She didn't really say a lot, I'm like, it wasn't like she was talking about neuroscience.
Help me everything.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, my mom thought that, there's a dream master and blah, blah. I mean, it just sounded like just shit you say, it wasn't like very profound, but maybe that's just me, maybe that's just the nerd in me. Like, oh, really? It's funny you should mention that because, there's being dream studies going on right now in neuroscience, very kind of new field, like something like that. Then I'd be like, yeah, wow, how do you know so much about dreams? So I wasn't really impressed with that. But ultimately, I think that, because Alice, I mean, oh God, what's her name again? Not Alice, Kristen. But Kristen said, oh, you get my powers, as she died. And Alice was leaving the dream. So I think that her throwing her powers, which was, I don't know, kind of silly, like, but whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things not explained in these movies, so they don't necessarily have to be solid, because otherwise, why the fuck are you even watching nightmare movies? So yeah, but either way, yeah, I just think so. That's why she went on to take on other people's powers. But I want to speak to one thing, because you mentioned these things like the montage, being very 80s. So this is my thought on the whole thing, because I'm watching it. I was living through these times. I was a teenager. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so... Oh, I mean, it's so 80s to the point where if I didn't know better, if I didn't know the real year that this was made, like if somehow I was born yesterday, with enough understanding, but like this could have been made in like 2019, and had it been like a movie about the 80s, and it, but they were trying too hard, like they just, because that's what Nightmare 4. I'm like, they're doing everything so, like, oh, you got the ninja references, everybody's their hair is so 80s, the music is so 80s. All this stuff, and it's like all these little things. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. You're 80s, you're 80s. So yeah, this and this was 1988, so it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, the 80s really didn't die until May, but it did die quickly in the early 90s. I would say with like the rise of Nirvana and grunge, that was like the game changer. Then it was like, okay, nothing looks like the 80s. Yeah. Like Nirvana or Mudhoney, like the sub pop groups and things like that, and then Seattle's pop culture, went east, and everybody was wearing Doc Martens, and I could find them anywhere before, when I used to have to go out of town to get them and shit. So yeah, but I mean, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, but it seemed like the 80s just kind of like they went away quickly when like the album Nevermind came out, and then it was all over, But yeah, this was incredibly 80s in a lot of ways. So I imagine, and that's like, and if you look at it with like, the eyes, like right now with younger people, it's like it's a nostalgia thing. I mean, and of course,
and Mark, you saw this in theaters too, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, I think I've.
So when you saw this in theaters, did you already know that it was going to be a different actress?
No, I had no idea. Yeah, it's like the only thing I had was Fangoria, and Fangoria was a really great, slick magazine, but it wasn't always affordable to me, so I couldn't keep up on things as much, because not a lot was being said on mainstream television or whatever about horror movies, with the exception of like the critic Leonard Maltin on Entertainment Tonight, or Ebert Siskel, and all they did was bitch. Oh, this movie. Oh, what about the children? Oh my goodness, everybody should just be nice to each other. That's all I got. So no, I did not expect the Kristen to be a different actress, and it took me it took me the context of Joey and Kincaid to figure it out. Oh, from Dream Warriors. As mind you, it came out 2 years before, so it'd been 2 years. It wasn't fresh in my mind.
Literally that scene where she's like in that boiler room and they come up behind her and he's like, "Oh my God, it's Kristen!" And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's fucking Kristen. Like that's who this bitch is." Like, they waited 10 minutes to fucking tell us this. Awesome. Smith, what about you? What did you think about Kristen and just how fast they killed her off in this movie?
Well, like Mark said, her only purpose there was to give her powers to Alice, which I think, I mean, they probably could have found a way better way to do that. Like, oh, maybe she's just another girl with the exact same powers to bring people over to her dream, instead of her being in whatever the fuck she got thrown into. I guess that was a boiler, right? And then throwing a lightning ball at Alice. Like, I don't know. It looked really lame. Yeah, I didn't even realize what was going on in that scene until afterwards. And as far as the actress goes, yeah, I didn't notice either, or at least it didn't affect the way I viewed the movie. For her not being the same,
She has a really cool name too. I mean, I will give her credit. The cool name, Tuesday Night. That's a pretty cool. That's a pretty badass name. But besides that, she is not a badass character. Like this was awful. I will say my favorite character of this movie. Because who did I say last time? Did I say it was Kincaid last movie? I think it was. This movie, I'd have to say, would probably be the brother, man. But again, the way this cat dies, it's embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing. Like, I sat here and I thought I could get into it in terms of him fighting off an invisible Freddy Krueger. And then you see like the glove flying, toward, like, I just couldn't get into it, man. I couldn't get into it. And when he died, I didn't think he really died until like it was like 5 minutes later. It was confirmed that he died, and I was like, they really did this? They really killed him like that? But was there any point in this movie that really shocked you guys at all, Smith?
No. except for maybe the nunchuck scene, all 27 seconds of it. Where that was shocking, I guess, in a way.
Mark, what about you?
Wow. I don't know if shock would be the right answer. Like I told you about the, how I felt about the cockroach scene. I mean, now mind you, for me, it wasn't like I was nauseated. It was just, it kind of gave me the willies and everything. And so,
Yeah.
and then when she gets her face caught at the bottom of the roach motel, and then she lifts up and it cracks, and I thought like her skeleton was going to come out, but then, it was a roach face, which was pretty fucking awesome, too. But I had to think about it too in terms of practical effects. That was probably rubber cement. I mean, could you imagine having to be in a shitload of rubber cement? I mean, they earned their pay and more for that alone. I mean, I doubt it was even the actress in the Get Up, but whoever did that, yeah, kudos to them, man. I don't know how I'd feel about sticking rubber cement all over myself, So
yeah,
but
I gotta say, like, in terms of the prosthetics and all the other stuff that they used for this movie, it was more than they did, and you could tell that $2 million made a huge difference. Especially with Freddy's look, like you said, like you started to see like the details with his teeth every time he opened up his mouth and started to say something. And the one thing I was afraid of was that they were gonna go away with the whole deep voice of Freddy when he starts to like do that little slow laugh. That evil slow laugh where it sounds like the dude has like a detailed microphone like in his mouth or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought they were gonna do away with that, but they actually kept that for this. And I was like, dude, I for some reason I get so hooked. No matter, because this movie to me was bad, but for some reason it can be the worst movie of all time. But when you hear that subtle laugh that Robert Englund does for Freddy, just makes everything better, man. It makes every fucking thing better. So now I want to get to you guys' favorite parts of this movie. Smith, I'll start with you in terms of favorite scene. What is your favorite scene in this movie?
Well, I would say the waterbed scene, because that could have been a Van Halen music video. But we already talked about that, so I'll do my second favorite, which is when Kristen goes to her happy place on the beach, and then Freddy is like Jaws or some shit. Like his glove is Jaws. Like
Yeah, that was it.
and then when he gets onto the beach, he fucking throws his sunglasses on. That's probably the most memorable thing.
That I love that scene. I really do love that scene, and that's when you really, that's when you really started getting a feel for, oh shit, this is a different Freddy than we've seen. Now, not completely different, obviously, because we saw the other stuff. But Mark, before we get to your favorite scene, I want to talk about my favorite scene really quick, which was that scene in the classroom where I forget the girl's name, but the one where he said, "Want to suck face?" That one.
Yeah.
Like
Sheila,
the short, nerdy
Sheila
black chick.
was her name. Yeah.
Sheila, yeah. And dude, that whole scene was awesome for a few reasons. So you have them sitting down in this classroom around a bunch of other people. So you're thinking, okay, they're gonna get up, they're gonna start screaming, people are gonna hear them. When they start screaming and moving and trying to shake around and trying to get everybody's attention, and no one's fucking moving, I'm like, that is the one part where not only did it surprise me, that made it my favorite scene in this movie, because for some reason in that moment in time, I thought to myself, now this is horror. This is slasher horror 101. It's how it takes the audience and says, how are they going to get out of this situation? Because they're doing everything in their power to get out of it. They're doing everything in their power to get their classmates to hear them screaming so they can wake up. And once they realize that they're asleep, because they didn't say, oh, we're still asleep. No. Yeah. It's all about the action. Their actions said everything. Their actions said, oh, shit, we can't wake up. So now she has to sit there. She's trapped in her. She has to sit there. Everybody's getting up, crowding around her as old girl is dying. And the fact where you have Freddy sitting in the teacher's chair and he's sitting back and he's peeling that apple and he's sitting there laughing. Oh my fucking god, dude! I love that scene. That takes me back, Mark, to that scene and I believe it was the second Freddy where he's in front of the fire and he's saying, "You're all my children now." Like it takes me back to that kind of iconic scene, and to me, that's got to be my favorite of this whole movie. My favorite scene of this entire fucking movie. Shout out to Terry the neighbor. Terry, what's up? Thank you for coming through and helping support the channel, man. Always a pleasure to have you in here, man. Mark, what was your favorite scene in this movie?
Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to point out, because you brought up the classroom scene. Now, this is where, okay, not to go into a big thing, haha. But like I think I distinguish nerds from geeks, right? I'm not saying that they can't cross, but there's a distinction. I think geeks are more about pop culture obsession, and nerds are more about like more smart, like people that are good at math or science or just something like, or just things that are nerdy, are like that, like things you learn in college and stuff like that. But this really drew out, like it made a nerd alert for me, because the teacher was talking. He was like, he mentioned Kafka and Goethe, and I was like, oh wow, Kafka and Goethe in high school? Man, why didn't I go to that one? They never mentioned Kafka in my high school, much less Goethe. So yeah, I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm losing the audience on that right now. But that was like a fun, like little nerd service, fan service moment for me. But to really actually get to probably my favorite scene, and it's favorite for me in a weird way, but to set it up, at one point in the movie, it was about the time when Kristen was it the beach scene? Yeah, it was, where she was, go to a good place, right? And I said, they always seem to come up with this situation where the dreams start out idyllic and then they just go south, So, and I thought, man, I was like, what if they had a dream where they were in a situation that was so awful that Freddy showing up would be like, oh, thank you, Freddy. Oh, yes. I mean, yes, please kill me. Give me the quick death. Like they weren't even being killed. They were just, like doing something horrible. Like somebody was making them suck off an alligator or something like that. But, and like, hey, Freddy's here. Kill me quick, So I think, however, they kind of gave me that scene. Not as quite as dramatic as the alligator, but when she started having the dream where she meets herself work as an old lady working in that same damn diner. Now, when I worked, and have all of you, I know you have, Corn. Have you worked in a restaurant ever?
Yeah, for 3 years. So.
Yeah, I don't know. My opinion is, it's some of the most awful work anyone could do. I mean, and I stocked shelves and had to be on my knees, and I still hated restaurant work more. But yeah, so it kind of that moment. So for me, it's like, like when I wash dishes, at a restaurant, I used to say, I think I died on the car right here, and now I'm in hell, and I'm going to be doing these dishes for all eternity. So like that. So that image of her as an old woman being in the diner, like all her dreams are crushed. Like if I were in her shoes, Freddy showed up, that would be me. Like, please just kill me, save me from this fate. I know you, Freddy. You make jokes and you do really outrageous things, but you usually make it pretty quick. So thank you, Freddy. Kill the fuck out of me. I don't know how he'd respond, but that's kind of a weird favorite for me, because it's kind of like they gave me what I asked for. I was thinking, how am I going to say this, about the like starting a nightmare off worse than Freddy, and they kind of did that. I don't know. At least that's from my personal perspective.
While I like the fact that Alice lived and her boyfriend lived too, that's very rare when it comes to horror movies. At least the ones that I've seen. in my lifetime. It's very rare that you get, the power couple per se, the power couple, alive in the end. That's one of the reasons why I liked Friday the 13th, that remake that they did, is because they killed the girl that you thought was going to be, well, not going to be, but the girl that we all thought was the main character. I like that. I really enjoyed that. That's a rare thing to do. But you know what else is a rare thing to do? Keep them both alive. Keep the two main ones alive, and they did with this one. Now I don't know if they're going to show back up in the fifth one. I don't know. We're going to have to see. But if you guys were given the directorial roles in this movie, what would you have done differently to make this movie better? Because I think we can all agree on, not this movie was terrible or anything, but I think we can all agree on that this movie could have been a lot better. So Smith, I'm going to ask you first. Look, they're giving you the reins to this movie. They're giving you the keys to the car. What are you going to do with it to make it better?
That is a tough question because the whole thing, in my opinion, is kind of a dumpster fire in the first place. But as I mentioned earlier, bringing in the three characters from the sequel, or the prequel, my bad, Kincaid, Joey, and Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing them back was probably a mistake. I know that Alice had to get the powers to see this through and everything, but there's other ways they could have done that. And honestly, I didn't even realize that they were the same kids from the third movie until probably Kristen died and she threw the powers. So yeah, I would have just done away with that altogether and just found a more clever way to make that work.
Interesting. Mark, yourself?
Well, I think Smith makes a good point. Yeah, because it was almost like, even though it took a while, especially for Kristen to die. Yeah. I mean, they had three characters live, and that is kind of the cliche. That you bring them back to the next movie. I mean, I don't know when exactly they started, but Friday the 13th Part 2, where Adrienne King, for Alice, I think her name, I don't know, I can't remember her character's name, but she gets bumped off in the first 5 minutes, oh yeah, it's her, and then boom, she's bumped off, and then the rest is a whole new cast of kids for Jason to kill. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because honestly, I like this movie. It's not perfect, but in a lot of ways. I mean, and I think the story points you are, because not to whatever, like the way you put it, it's the whole Kristen throwing Alice her powers was kind of a weird flex. So yeah, and there was something about that. It's okay, suspension of disbelief can occur, but I think it took away from an immersive experience where it just took me way too out. Kristen, I don't know. They had the same Kincaid and the same Joey. I mean, I guess they needed Kristen for the powers or whatever, but I don't know. I wish they would have done that better in that regard, with that. But I guess this is one thing I haven't thought of before. But when it comes to slasher movies, it always have more bodies, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you can say, well, yeah, they left you wanting more, Mark, and that was true, because man, there were some great kills in this movie. I mean, they were very imaginative. So yeah, but maybe a couple of more. I don't know, but that's always what I always ask of slasher movies. The better the kill count, the more I'm going to enjoy it. Because I don't always bring my brain to these movies. It was just like a little treat that Kafka and Gupta and Aristotle were mentioned, but yeah. And otherwise, I'm I don't go to a slasher movie, to look for something that's going to be in the Criterion collection. I'm going there to see people die. And I know that sounds good, but yeah, and that's from the perspective of somebody that can differentiate, fact from fiction. I don't want to see real people die, but movie people. Yeah, let the bodies hit the floor. So Oh yeah.
Shout out to Drowning Pool for that song, by the way.
Yeah.
For any Drowning Pool fans out there. But yeah, I mean, Mark, you're right. You know, you want to see more bodies. Yeah, more bodies hit the floor. You want to see the kill count, right? And that's one thing you have to play in factor when watching any horror movie is the kill count. This is kind of playing into my grade here. But I want to start off with you, Mark, in terms of the grade, because you brought up an interesting point, which was you're not necessarily going to keep your brain on. You can pretty much turn your brain off for a couple hours or an hour and a half. Sit down and watch this movie. But at the end of the day, it's still a sequel and it's still telling a long-term story. Well, at least supposed to be. A lot of inconsistency here. Because again, the first half of this movie, you're killing off the character who we thought was going to be the main character of this movie. Because we're like, okay, we're continuing what happened in Dream Warriors. All right, awesome. Because she is the ultimate Dream Warrior, right? But then you kill her off. She transfers her powers. Again, not really necessarily explained prior to this movie about the whole power exchanging, stuff. So, again, they brought a lot of new elements with this movie. And they brought they brought things to this movie that to me, as someone who's going to sit down and watch this movie with fresh eyes, is very confusing. Because a lot of it, like what I mentioned with the classroom scenario, right? Where old girl died and how to me how poetic that killing was, or how poetic that death was, because of he sucked the life out of her. And then the fact that she's dying of asthma, you know what I mean? She's having an asthma attack and ends up dying. So at the same time, this movie has to be, I'm not saying it has to be poetic by any means, but at the same time, you're telling us a story with your actions rather than words. The only difference between having a scene telling a story with your actions and then having an entire movie and trying to tell that story with actions is that you need to use words for those of us for the majority of the audience. Because us, we can, we can sit there and dissect the movie and whatever and kind of connect the dots, somewhat a little bit, right? But most people can't. Most people, when they sit down there, just brain dead. So it's like, if they don't know what's going on, they don't know what, like, if you don't say, hey, this is what's going on, especially in a movie like this, where you're introducing new elements to a story that has been going on for what, 6 or 7 years at this point, this franchise has been going on. So at the end of the day, I cannot grade this, you know what I mean? I can't grade this movie that high because they're trying to tell this story with their actions and not the fucking words. They're saying, okay, I'm going to transfer these powers to you, but what are these powers? How do they work? What's the gadget shit? We only saw that gadget shit when what's her name? Shiley? Is that how your name? What's her name? Shiley? Sheila. Back when Sheila was on her bike, and she's like, just pulls it out. Hey, I got this gadget thingy, majiggy. What she said it was, like a sound wave or something like that. Some kind of wave, right? But
Yeah,
that little gadget thing.
Sound, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you said high pitched sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the high pitched sound thing. She dies, leaves it beside, it's laying there beside her. Great on the director or the writer, whoever came up with that. Great storytelling. But again, for that scene alone, though, the rest of the movie is not consistent. I mean, so Smith, I'm going to start off with you. I want to know what your grade of this movie is.
Well, it's you guys are both making it difficult because I knew what my grade was coming into this, but now I'm not so sure. You're both making really good points. But I am the kind of guy who, if you put something on the TV and it's at least mildly entertaining, I can glue myself to that screen for at least a couple hours and just like zone out. I found it really difficult during this fucking film to watch it. Like, I was like staring at the wall and stuff, like coming back to it, which is probably why I missed that ending scene with his face in the reflection. And then another thing you mentioned with the gadget,
Mhm.
Like, if you can bring anything, if it's on you and it comes like you're wearing it on your body and it comes to you into the dream, just bring a gun. Like, I don't know. No one else thought of that. Like, I don't know if he's impervious to bullets, but sound waves or whatever hurt him. I want to give this a higher grade on the other end. So those are my gripes with the film, the major ones. But on the other side, it is iconic, and as you mentioned, it's how we got to know the Freddy that most people think about, which is doing wackier, zanier things. So I'm gonna give this a B minus. Well, actually, I'm gonna say a 79.9%, 0.99%. So a C plus, B minus.
C
A
plus,
hard C plus.
C plus, B minus. Okay, all right, Mark. What about you? What do you give this movie?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely divided. Honestly, uh, I have to say, I like this movie. Like I mentioned before, I came out of it energized. It gave me what I was looking for. I love the kills, the action, the humor. A lot of that. But yeah, those things that kept taking me out of it, that were kind of robbing me of my immersive experience. Um, yeah, it takes it out of the A range for me. But since I liked it so much, oh yeah, and by the way, Freddy getting shot through the chest and his heart still beating there. Oh, and then the top of his head gets ripped off, and his death. Oh, when they tear him, that was amazing. So yeah, a hard B plus.
Ooh, okay,
Mm.
okay, all right, Mark. I see you. Um, like I said it before, this movie was a hard watch for me. This is probably the hardest Nightmare on Elm Street movie for me to watch. And not saying like visually, just in terms of story, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like I know they're running from him, and I know it's not like complete rocket science as to what needs to happen in order for this movie to end. Like for us to be like, yay, the good guys won in the end. Like we know what's supposed to happen, but we still don't know why the fuck Freddy is chasing these people after Kristen. Until again, maybe the powers, yes, of course, but what are the powers really when Freddy doesn't really need to chase these kids after Kristen? But again, that's just me. Now let's get to the ending of this movie. The ending of this movie where Freddy, I love the visual effects again, where Freddy's dying, and Marky touched on it as well, with the arms coming out and coming out from the back of his head, and but what did she do? She gave him what, a mirror or something like that for him to see himself with the souls in his body or some shit like that. Like again, another conflicting fucking ending, another conflicting death of Freddy's, like we talked about in the second one, where it was the kiss of death. So now here we are talking about how all you need to do to defeat this cat is to show him himself in the mirror. Like, is this bloody mirror? Like, what is this? Now again, I know it's not supposed to be rocket science, but what kind of death is that? What kind of death is that? Now, that's the harsh reality of this movie. I will give them credit where credit's due, and a caveat off of what you guys were saying in terms of the kill count. There were a lot of deaths in this movie, and they were all very I wouldn't say they were all very creative, but most of them were very creative. That Invisible Freddy one really fucked me up. I'm like, all right, like we're doing this. We're doing this. We're really fucking doing this. And they did. Sure enough, they did. So I'm definitely gonna have to to grade this movie a bit low, man. Because although it did introduce to us a really fun and comedic Freddy, not as comedic as I thought he'd be, but a lot more comedic than he's been throughout the franchise up to this point, right? So I'm gonna have to give this movie a hard C, just a solid C. Just based on the fact, because it's not a terrible movie, but it's in terms of story it's bad, but in terms of visuals it's really cool. The creativity when it comes to the kills, pretty cool. The only two deaths I really had a problem with was Freddy's death alone, and that invisible one. Like even the chick that died from becoming a roach and all that other stuff, like that wasn't too bad. It was more like a what the fuck moment, but it's actually still one of those like you can get away with doing something like that in a Freddy movie. Like you can still, I mean, they've established credibility in the first 3 movies to where they could probably put something out there like that and us not really be like, whoa, what the fuck is this? It's more of like weird flex, but okay, we kind of see where you're going with this. So that death wasn't really too bad. Again, just a Freddy death and an invisible guy. So I got to give this movie a C. Definitely got to give this movie a fucking C. So with our grades out of the way, is there anything else you guys want to say about this movie?
Yeah. Did you watch all the credits?
No.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so you might not know what I'm talking about because I want to give a shout out to. Okay, this. Imagine, if you will, or maybe you already know about the world of hip hop before, say, maybe Ice-T and NWA. And one of my favorites was the Fat Boys. And, as campy and ridiculous as they were, that's kind of why I like them. I mean, the human beatbox, hilarious, So they, and you had to wait until the second song in the credits to get the written for the movies, Are You Ready for Freddy? By the Fat Boys. I think they even had a video. My memory's hard. I didn't get a chance to look that up, but what a little gem, what a little drop of honey and something, because the first credit song was kind of like, oh yeah, this is kind of wow, whoa, but then the Fat Boys, awesome. So yeah, that's what I want to like. Just one little thing. Shout out to the Fat Boys.
Didn't this movie have a pretty good rollout too for the marketing for this movie? It had pretty big marketing, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Dream Wars 3 had a lot of marketing, so yeah, they just upped it for 4 because they already had, it was already a blockbuster.
That's what's up. So Smith, do you have anything else to say about this movie?
Well, we didn't mention the special effects on Freddy's rebirth, or he came back to life. The bones snapping together and the flesh growing back on him. I thought that was really good. Also, I don't know, Mark, you'll probably know the word for this, but the way she was removing the pictures slowly from her mirror, saw her reflection, that's how she killed Freddy. That didn't click with me until we started talking about it, but yeah, that's pretty clever. I think that was...
Wait. Hold up. Say that again?
So as her friends died, she would remove a picture from her picture board, but it was a mirror, like the singer from Green Day mentioned, her brother. And then she would slowly start seeing her whole face, and then I think that's where she got the idea to kill him with a mirror or something, or she remembered the rhyme. I just think, yeah, that was kind of well done.
Damn.
Like I said, it didn't click with me until we started talking about it. I was trying to figure out the whole time, like, what's the deal with her looking in the mirror? Like, I don't care. Like,
I didn't catch that.
Well, there you go.
I didn't catch that.
When you overanalyze movies, sometimes you come up with those things.
Oh, holy shit!
I don't know if it's symbolism. What is that, Mark? You're the fucking educated one here. Can you help us out?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to embarrass myself. I mean, all I can think of was, they were sort of telegraphing that with that. Maybe that's the word you're looking for. It was some sort of
foreshadowing.
Yes. There you go.
But I feel up the word. I feel like it was more than that though. Like it was actually like a character development kind of thing. I don't know. But yeah, it is what it is. So if you watch it again, maybe look for that.
Yeah. So
I might have to watch that again, unfortunately, because I really don't want to watch the movie again. But I just might have to watch it again just for that one reason.
Come for the cockroach woman, I mean, come on. Think how many rubber cement buckets were used, and how many stuntmen had to put themselves physically in rubber cement to make the Roach Motel scene, because there wasn't. They would have totally have done that digitally today. I don't think the unions would have liked that. Like,
Oh no.
wait, you're gonna put our stuntmen and rubber cement? Fuck you. You know, fucking get the computer animator out. Jesus Christ, we can't afford that. The insurance.
Yeah, shout out to Jaren. Jaren says, "Yo, hey, Jaren, what's up, man? Thank you for coming through. Make sure you join us on our next stream here in about 10 minutes as well. Right here on Half-Ass's YouTube channel. But yes, this was Friday. I mean, not Friday. God damn it! Why do I keep saying Friday 13th? Eventually, we're gonna review that whole franchise too. But for right now, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dream Master. I only have one last question for you guys. Are you guys looking forward to the 5th one? Mark, I'll start with you.
I don't know. I'm kind of worried because I really don't remember a lot of it. I mean, the title triggers, the Dream Child. I think that's what it's called. So I remember a little bit of it, but oh man, I'm worried because if it's that forgettable. But then again, I didn't remember a lot for number 4, and there were a lot of things that I thought, man, that should have been more memorable, in those terms, like I've been raving about all the kills. But there are 2 more before Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I don't know, because I don't know if this is, because that's what I thought. Because I had been thinking, like I've been saying, oh, number 3, that was the one where we really get to Freddy that he became famous for. But then I was watching number 4. I was like, oh yeah, actually I was wrong. This really is the one. So I think we're gonna get more of that. And I like that. I don't know, whatever. I mean, yeah, he was more comedic, but I mean, how many slashers at the time, made puns and dropped, in dark humor jokes. I love dark humor. But yeah, I have to admit I'm a little worried. Maybe there'll be more, because after all, there were some things that lowered my usual high grade to a, I guess a B plus doesn't have a big impact for me. Like, oh, B plus, that's still pretty good, Mark. But it's kind of Mark bad,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Smith, what about you? Are you looking forward to the 5th installment?
Nope. I don't know. After this one, I mean, I was never really that familiar with the whole franchise before this.
Yeah, me either.
Now I don't even know why anyone remembers these movies now. Like Jason, I get those were good films, but most of these movies are not like.
Jason and Slash. As I say, Jason Slasher. Jason and Michael Myers are more of the slasher type. I mean, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say Leatherface as well. They're more of the slasher-esque type of characters. With Freddy, it's different because 1, Freddy talks. And 2, Freddy has these weird shenanigans unlike any other serial killer, including Chucky. Because Chucky is mostly his mouth. Freddy is more actions than words and playing with his victims rather than just being straight out evil.
Psychological mindfuck type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that is what really made it so interesting while watching these movies. It's like, because the only Freddys I remember, the only 2 versions I remember are the Freddy versus Jason Freddy, and I can't wait till we review that movie. The Freddy versus Jason Freddy, and then the reboot Freddy, which obviously everybody completely shat on that Freddy. So
it will be interesting revisiting that film. For me.
Yeah.
I remember not liking it, but it's been a long time. I might have changed my view on it.
I absolutely adore Rooney Mara though. Like I love. She's fucking gorgeous. But anyways, I cannot wait to review that one too. But so we will be back here. Whether it will be next week reviewing Nightmare on Elm Street 5 or maybe the week after that, don't know yet. But stay tuned for that. But also, guys, stay tuned here on Half-Ass Pod here on YouTube, because we are going to be back here in just a few minutes. We're at our actual film panel episode, so stay tuned. We're going to be talking about the past couple trailers that's been coming out in terms of Snake Eyes, what was the other, Suicide Squad, all this other stuff. So make sure you guys Stay right here on the channel, and we will be back here in a few minutes. I am me. I'm Corn. This is Smith. This is Mark. And ladies and gentlemen, we are OUT.